All right, this is chapter 4 of The Dreamer, Forest. Those are weeds, Naphtali, said Rodolfo, not flowers. Now come, if you make me late for school again today, I will tell father, and today I do not feel like running. Naphtali stopped picking the tiny blossoms that made the spring air smell peppery. He stuffed the ones he'd collected into his pocket and hurried toward Rodolfo. Surprised, Rodolfo put his hands on his hips and stared at him. So today you're listening to me? I do not want to get into any trouble. Only 3 more days until father takes me on the train to the forest. I'm old enough now. I'm 8, and strong enough too. He held up an arm and tried to make a muscle. Rodolfo pulled his coat tighter around him. Good for you. I don't care if I ever go back. That is because you could get to go with father all the time. What did you see last week? Rodolfo didn't answer. He just took Naphtali's hand, looked straight ahead, and pulled him toward the school. Birds. Did you see birds? Naphtali persisted. Rodolfo sighed. Yes, I saw birds. I even saw the chical, and Mr. Chical bird gave me a warning. Naphtali tugged on Rodolfo's hand, stopping him. How do you know it was the chical bird? Easy. Its call sounds just like its name, Choo-cow. It's a tiny bird with a throat a color of copper, but its size is deceiving. It has a very loud voice. Did you hear it on your right side or on your left? On my left, said Rodolfo. Did you have bad luck? Rodolfo scuffed the ground with his boot. A bit. But if you heard the call on your left, why didn't you just turn around? Naphtali quickly faced the other direction, so the bird was on your right. Then you would have good luck. Rodolfo rolled his eyes. There's only one anecdote to the warning, and that is to take off a piece of clothing, a hat, a shoe, your shirt, and immediately put it back on. If you do it in time, you erase the bad luck. I took off my hat. Did you take it off quickly enough? Did it erase your bad luck? Rodolfo frowned. Most of it. It was as if a dark cloud had descended upon Rodolfo. He took Naphtali's hand and tugged him toward the school again. What happened? Did you get stung by a hornet? It is not important. What else did you see in the forest then? Asked Naphtali. Rodolfo ignored him. You must have seen something. Eagles? Did you see eagles? And what about father? What was he like? Tell me, porfa. Stop your begging, Rodolfo snapped. Don't ask me again, or I'll tell father you did make me late to school, and then you can forget your precious trip to the forest. What was wrong with Rodolfo? Was he jealous that it was Naphtali's turn, or was he just ungrateful? When they reached the schoolyard, Rodolfo released his hand. Go to your classroom. And if you're thinking you're going to find your so-called nice father in the forest, you might be disappointed. So do not hope for too much. He turned and walked away with his head down and his hands in his pockets. As Naphtali watched him go, he noticed that Rodolfo was limping. 3 days later, Naphtali opened his eyes in the faint light before sunrise. It was much too early to get up. He stared at the ceiling, imagining all the things he might collect to bring home from the forest. Then the cracks in the ceiling opened and let in the sky. He found himself lying in his bed beneath an enormous tree with a wide trunk. He got up, put on his boots, and marched around the tree, counting his steps to determine how many it would take to make the complete circle. 43, 44, 45. His bed marked where he had begun, but no matter how many steps he took, he could not get around the girth of the trunk to reach it again. Finally, Naphtali decided to climb the gargantuan tree, hoping to find a way over it instead of around it. He was high in the branches when he heard father's voice. Naphtali, did you wear your boots all night long? Naphtali dropped from the tree to the bed. Father hovered over him, wearing a dark gray cape, one Naphtali had never seen before. Naphtali sat up and stared at the boots on his feet. I wanted to be ready. He jumped to the floor, his heart beating with anticipation. Slow down, said father, laughing quietly. You have plenty of time. Come get dressed and eat breakfast. And wear something warm. The morning air will chill you. Naphtali pointed at father. The cape? Ah, yes, it is new. The company gave it to me for my service. The finest wool. When you are ready, meet me on the platform. He turned and marched from the room, the cape billowing behind him. When Naphtali arrived in the kitchen, Rodolfo was already sitting at the table eating un marchetta. Mamadre nodded to a plate for Naphtali, where another bread roll waited to be slathered with jam. Sleepy-eyed, Loretta wandered into the kitchen dragging a rag doll. Madre picked her up, hugged her, and sat her on the chair. Then she handed Neftali a bag. Bread, fruit, and cheese for later. It will be a long day on the train, and you will be hungry. I wish I could go on the train, said Loretta. You are too little, said Neftali. You must be big like me, right, Rodolfo? Rodolfo said nothing and looked only at his food. It wasn't until Loretta dribbled jam on her lap and Madre ushered her from the kitchen to change her clothes that Rodolfo put down his fork and leaned forward. Neftali, look at me and listen carefully. When you go with Father, you must follow his orders. Do not get underfoot of the workers. I did once, and he made me sit in the train all morning. And do not talk to the workers unless they talk to you first. Otherwise, Father will think you are keeping them from their work. Another thing, and this is very important. Rodolfo leaned across the table and put his hand on Neftali's arm. Are you listening? Neftali nodded. When he blows the whistle, get back to the train immediately so that he does not have to come looking for you. That is where I made my mistake. Last week, when it was time to go, he had to search for me. When he found me, I was disobeying him. Rodolfo winced. I still have the bruises. Do you understand? You do not want Father to catch you doing something wrong. Neftali's heart sank into his stomach. What were you doing? For a few moments, Rodolfo gazed off. Then he let go of Neftali's arm, pushing himself away from the table, and stood up. He took a few shaky steps toward the door, turned, and said, I was singing. Which is sharper, the hatchet that cuts down dreams, or the scythe that clears a path for another? And that's where I'm going to stop. You'll have to come back for part 2.